All right, so today is factoring, kind of like the very first day of factoring as far as just kind of really getting into it. Yesterday we did intro to factoring, and now we're just going to jump right in. The first step, kind of have them rewritten right here, is you're going to factor out the GCF. So the GCF is the main thing in front of every single piece on our little equation or whatever right here. So if I can take out something, in this case I can pull out a 3 out of each piece. So this would be x squared, this would be 7x, and this would be 10. So that's step one, factor out the GCF. The next thing says once a equals 1, so we're talking about a being this number right here. The reason why I get these letters from is ax squared plus bx plus c. So a is 1, so then it says rewrite as 2 sets of parentheses. So I'm going to have that 3 there. I'm going to do 2 sets of parentheses. The last step says find the factors of c, so c, 10, that add up to equal b, 7. So I'm going to rewrite x and x there, because x times x is x squared, and that's what we're doing. We're doing our multiplication backwards. We're kind of breaking this down. So what times what makes 10, but also adds up to 7. So think about all the different factors. Do 10 times 1, 5, and 2. I think that's it for that one. So the ones that add up to 7 are 5 and 2. You can write it any way you want. You can do x plus 2 and then x plus 5. The 3 just has to be on the outside. So we factored it out, we rewrote it, and we factored completely there. Number 2 works the exact same way. What you can take out of all 3 of those is a 2. So I get x squared minus 5x minus 36. A is 1 now, so I rewrite it as 2 different sets of parentheses. Try and see, okay, what times what is going to make negative 36. There's a lot of factors. You got 12 and 3, 9 and 4, 36 and 1. You got negatives, so you got to throw those out there too. But remember, one's got to be a negative and one's got to be a plus because a negative times a positive is a negative. So then, once you get the numbers that make 36, make the bigger one negative because the b is still negative. So 9 and positive 4. Okay, let's move on. The next 4 are pretty easy. Today in class, I had the kids break up and do this separately. So if you want to pause and try each one, I'll go ahead and write the answers down. Number 3 is y minus 5 and y minus 6. Number 4 is x plus 7 and x minus 3. Number 5, you can factor out a 4, so you're left with a squared plus 7a plus 10, and then factor that to a plus 5, and then a plus 2. Number 6, same thing, factor out a 2, so left with x squared minus 2x minus 24. Factors of negative 24 that add up to 2 are negative 6 and positive 4. So that one's kind of tricky because there are many factors of negative 24. You got 8 and 3, 6 and 4, 12 and 2, 24 and 1. And the negative 6 and 4 is the only one that works to make negative 2. We move on to number 7. Number 7 is tricky because there's nothing that adds up to 12 that multiplies to make 12 that also adds up to 6. 3 and 4 don't add to 6. 2 and 6 don't add to 6. 12 and 1 don't add to 6. So we like to say that is prime. Prime is different than no solution. Prime just means we cannot factor it, just like 7 is prime. 7, the only factors of 7 are 7 and 1. Same thing for 5, 5 and 1. It's not like 8, whereas 4 and 2, or 2 and 4, or 8 and 1, or anything like that. That's not prime. Prime just means we can't factor it. We'll get to what we do with primes later on down the road. The next 3 are difference of perfect squares. So a squared minus b squared. Sorry, I didn't mean to do parentheses. That is a formula. So a plus b, and then a minus b. So with that little formula right there, we can pretty much conquer 8, 9, and 10. So what we're going to do here is, hold on one sec. All right, sorry about that. So anyway, we can do all of these with just this formula. So the square root of x squared and the square root of 25 is going to be x and 5. The only difference is one's going to be a plus and one's going to be a minus. And that's it. That's called the difference of squares, the difference of perfect squares. That's because this is a squareable or square rootable number, and that's a square rootable number. So that's pretty much it. On number 9, what can we take out of all of those? We always got to look for GCF first, and that's a 4. So y squared minus 25. And then once again, we have the difference of squares right there. So 4, and then y and y, square root of 25 is 5, we just did that, and one's a minus and one's a plus. Like I said, it doesn't matter which order you do it in, as long as one is positive and one's negative. Number 10, what can we take out of both of those? A 2. Good job. So I'm left with 49 minus 4m squared. From there, we have difference of squares yet again. It has to be a minus sign in between those two squares, and we do still have that. So 2 sets of parentheses, square root of 49 is 7 and 7. One's a plus, one's a minus, and then it's 2m and 2m. All right, the last couple are kind of tricky, so bear with me as we go over this. Off to the side here, I think I have some notes. I wrote it down for... Yeah. Go ahead and write this down. You might want to pause it. It's a good time to write this down, just talk about it. Now we're going to be doing if A does not equal 1. So we're first going to multiply A times C, find the factors of AC that equal B. We're going to rewrite B with those numbers. We're going to factor by grouping. So I'm going to go ahead and do those examples there, and we'll kind of walk through each step. So be sure that you pause it so you can write it all down.
AC equals B.
Yeah. Sorry, technical difficulties. All right, there we go. So the first thing is we're going to multiply 3 times 20 to get 60. So that's A times C. That gives us 60. Remember, our A is not 1 anymore, it's 3. The next thing we're going to do is find the factors of 60. So what times what makes 60, and also adds up to 17. So the answer is 5 and 12. So just like on the notes, I'm going to rewrite the middle term, B, as these two magic numbers. So plus 5x and plus 12x. The last thing we do is what it said on there was factor by grouping. So what can I take out of the first two? What can I take out of the second two? So the first two, there's an x. That's all we can take out. So I got 3x plus 5. The next two, what can we take out? A 4. So I'm left with x. Sorry, 3x plus 5. The cool thing about this is they match. They will always match. And when they do match, I rewrite it once. I cross them both out, and then I rewrite what's literally left over. In this case, x and a plus 4. And that's when I'm done. So this is kind of a longer process. Unfortunately, there's a couple other ways. They're not really any quicker than this way, but I will talk about it tomorrow. So we move on to number 12. Works the same way. Multiply 2 times -4, it gives us -8. So what times what makes -8, but also adds up to positive 7. So we got a negative this time, so it's going to be 8 and -1, 8 and -1. So I rewrite the middle term. So 2y squared and -4 stay the same. Those are the first and the last term. The middle term is 8y and -y. What can we take out of the very first two? Some people say 2, some people say y. They're both correct. So 2 and a y. I'm left with y plus 4. What can I take out of the next two? -1. So I'm left with y plus 4. Two things that match, we rewrite it once, y plus 4, and then 2y minus 1. After we write the things that match, we cross them out. What's left over? 2y minus 1. The last one's a little crazy. We're factoring that as well. You still multiply 6 times -3, you get -18. What times what makes -18, but also adds up to 7. So that's going to be 9 and -2. 9 and -2. So my first term's the same. It's a z. It's kind of weird. We're not used to seeing z's. Plus 9z minus 2z minus 3. Factor out what we can of the first two. It's a 3 and a z. I'm left with 2z plus 3. Factor out a negative here. So then I'm left with 2z plus 3. Get sloppy here, my bad. Last thing, two things that match. 2z plus 3. Things that don't match or that weren't the same, I got a -1 right there. So 3z minus 1. Those are your dimensions. Feel free to rewatch many times as you need to. Sorry that was quick. Good luck. See you tomorrow.